Everyone. I'd like to spend a few minutes to provide you with an overview
Đây là
of
ông
what we
Bộ
have done
trưởng
and
Bộ
are
An ninh Nội
continuing to
địa
do and what
của
we are
chính quyền Tổng
dedicated
thống Biden, ông
to
Alejandro
achieving.
Mayorkas.
We are dedicated to achieving and quite
Chúng tôi
frankly
cam
are
kết
working
để
around the
tạo
clock
những thành
to
quả cho
replace the
cái
cruelty of the past administration with
chính
an
quyền mới,
orderly,
và tôi công nhận là
humane,
có một sự
and safe
đàn độc của chính
immigration
quyền
process.
cũ
It
về
is
đối với
hard
những
and it will take
người tị
time,
nạn và ở
but
biên
rest
giới.
assured we are going to get it done. Let me explain to you why it is hard and why it is going to take time. I think it is important to understand what we have inherited because it defines the situation as it currently stands. Entire systems are not rebuilt in a day or in a few weeks. To put it succinctly, the prior administration dismantled our nation's immigration system in its entirety. When I started 27 days ago,
Khi mà
I
tôi
learned
bắt
that
đầu
we
công
did
việc
not
vào
have
27 ngày trước,
the facilities available or equipped to administer the humanitarian laws that our
thì
Congress
những
passed
phương
years
tiện chắc
ago.
trong những cái
We did not have the personnel, policies,
cho những người
procedures, or training
bất hợp
to
pháp
administer those
rất là
laws.
tệ.
Quite frankly, the entire system was gutted. In addition, they tore down the Central American Minors Program that allowed children to access laws of protection without having to take the perilous journey north. They cut off funding to the Northern Triangle countries of Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. No planning had been done to protect the frontline personnel of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection and other frontline personnel that address the needs of individuals coming to our border. Contracts had been entered that were unlawful or against the interests of the United States Department of Justice. And that's just the tip of it. And I must tell you that it pains me profoundly to say this today on March 1st, the 18th anniversary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It takes time to rebuild an entire system and to process individuals at the border in a safe and just way. That is especially true when we're in the midst of the pandemic and are obligated, of course, to adhere to the restrictions and procedures that have been promulgated by the CDC to ensure public safety, including the safety of the individuals who arrive at our border. It takes time to build out of the depths of cruelty that the administration before us established. What we are seeing now at the border is the immediate result of the dismantlement of the system and the time that it takes to rebuild it virtually from scratch. We have, though, already begun to design and, in fact, have begun to implement a new, innovative way to address the needs of the population that was forced to remain in Mexico during the prior administration. That rebuilding, that innovative solution is but one part of a multi-part strategy to execute on the President's vision. For example, we've also begun to rebuild the process for young people to be able to access avenues of protection without having to take the perilous journey. We have begun to develop and rebuild the program to reunify individuals with their families here in the United States, as was once the case. The President set forth his bold vision in his executive orders at the outset of his administration, and we are driven to implement them successfully. Let me, if I can, take a couple minutes to explain that innovative system to which I referred with respect to how we are addressing the individuals who were forced into the Remain in Mexico program under the prior administration. Working very closely with the Mexican government and international organizations in Mexico, we have developed a virtual platform that enables individuals with active cases in the Remain in Mexico program to actually register for relief using their phones. The international organizations then work with those individuals to test them process their cases,
từng
and
từng cá nhân
transport them
để kiểm tra
safely
họ
and according to a
và
defined
an
schedule
toàn và
to the port of entry
họ
where
thể
we
những
are
cái,
awaiting
nguyên
them
nhân
and can
cá nhân
process
của từng cá
them
nhân,
through the port of entry
về cái trao
successfully.
về
We
các hỏi
started
về phụ nữ
with
để an
one
toàn khi
port and
vào
25
nếu họ tìm hàng vào
individuals
Mỹ.
a day. We are now at 3 ports, and we have enhanced our processes at one of those 3 ports to reach 100 individuals a day in processing to address the acute need in the camp at Matamoros, which we have all heard so much about. This is all, by the way, at a time when we are also addressing the needs of our frontline personnel. Soon after I took office on February 2nd, we launched Operation VOW, Vaccinate Our Workforce, where we have really surged resources and capabilities according to the paradigm that has been established by the COVID-19 task force to address the needs of frontline personnel throughout the federal government. In February alone, we started at 2% of that frontline personnel workforce vaccinated. At the end of February, we were able to reach 20% of the frontline personnel. I have to take this opportunity at the same time to reiterate a message that we have communicated repeatedly throughout, which is a message to those individuals who are thinking of coming to our border. They need to wait. It takes time. The system from scratch. If families come, if single adults come to the border, we are obligated to, in the service of public health, including the health of the very people who are thinking of coming, to impose the travel restrictions under the CDC's Title 42 authorities and return them to Mexico. And we have done that. We need individuals to wait, and I will say that they will wait with a goal in mind, and that is our ability to rebuild as quickly as possible a system so that they don't have to take the dangerous journey, and we can enable them to access humanitarian relief from their countries of origin. The fact of the matter is that families and single adults are indeed being returned under the COVID-19 restrictions. Let me then turn to the issue and the challenge of unaccompanied children, because I know that much has been reported about the handling of unaccompanied children, and let me just explain the process, if I may. When an unaccompanied child reaches the border and comes in between the ports of entry, U.S. Customs and Border Protection personnel, specifically the United States Border Patrol, brings that child to a Border Patrol station for processing. The Border Patrol is only a pass-through. We are obligated to turn that child over to the Department of Health and Human Services within 72 hours. We are a pass-through. And then Health and Human Services, or HHS, of course, as is commonly referred to, addresses the needs of that child as HHS is identifying and vetting sponsors in whose trust the child can be placed while the child is in immigration proceedings. And so we have the child for a maximum of 72 hours, and of course, given the pandemic and its restrictions, given the extreme weather conditions in Texas, a critical part, that 72-hour time frame was certainly under stress, as we all know, and as we can all understand. And then children are in HHS custody for an average of about 31 or 32 days. Finally, let me turn to, I think, the most powerful and heartbreaking example of the cruelty that preceded this administration, and that is the intentional separation of children from their parents. I am the chairman. I have the privilege of serving at the President's designation as the chairman of the Family Reunification Task Force. The First Lady has driven us to action through her personal commitment to this moral imperative. And that moral imperative is to reunite the families and restore them to the fullest capacity that we as the United States government can do. And I should say that we are not doing it alone. We are working closely with counsel for the separated family members. We are doing it
Và tôi nói
along
về
with
cái sự
the countries
không
of
nhân
El
đạo
Salvador,
của chính
Guatemala,
quyền
and
của
Honduras. I
Tổng thống,
spoke
cựu Tổng thống
with the
Trump
foreign
là khi
minister
mà
of
chia
each of
rẽ
those
những
countries this
đứa
past
trẻ
Friday.
nhỏ và
We are
đi
doing it
vào
with
Mỹ, mà bây
non-governmental
giờ
organizations,
với ba mẹ
and
của
we
chúng mà bây
intend
giờ
to
là
and
khoảng
will
8.000 gia
shortly
đình
harness the
những đứa nhỏ
capabilities,
không chiếm
resources,
lại
and
toàn
desire
tụ lại với
of the
cha mẹ
private
nó
sector. This is
của chúng.
not only an all of government, but all of society effort to do what is right. We are hoping to reunite the families either here
Chúng tôi hy vọng
or
là
in the
đoàn kết
country of
được những
origin.
đứa
We
trẻ,
hope to be
gia
in a
đình của
position
chúng.
to give them the election. And if, in fact, they seek to reunite here in the United States, we will explore lawful pathways for them to remain in the United States and to address the family needs, so we are acting as restoratively as possible.
Và
I am
tôi,
very proud
càng
and
là sớm
excited
càng
to
tốt, tôi
announce
cố gắng càng làm
that
sớm càng
we
tốt.
have hired Michelle Branet as the executive director of the Family Reunification Task Force. She began late last week. Most recently, she served as the senior director of the Migrant Rights and Justice program of the Women's
Và
Refugee
chúng tôi cũng thành lập cái
Commission.
bộ
She has
bộ
dedicated
phận là thành lập
her entire
đoàn kết,
career to human rights, and she is
đoàn tụ lại
an
những gia đình của
extraordinary
những đứa trẻ nhỏ,
talent
một riêng để
that
làm việc
will
đó.
bring justice and results to this effort, along with the resources of the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the Department of Health and Human Services, and every other member of the federal government that has resources to bring to bear. It is because of the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security and across the federal enterprise that we will dig out of the cruelty of the past administration, and we will rebuild our nation's asylum system and all of our humanitarian programs, of which we have been historically so proud as a leader in the world. And with that, Jen, I'm pleased to take questions.
Thanks.
Bây giờ tôi
You
sẽ
mentioned that it'll take some
trả lời
time
câu hỏi của
to
bạn.
rebuild the department. How long? I mean, obviously, you're asking the American people to be patient, these migrants to be patient. How long will it take to rebuild these systems and processes and staffing that you say you inherited that were not there when you inherited the agency? And then also on the Family Reunification Task Force, how big is this population of separated families right now, of separated children? And how many have you already been able to
Ông thì bao
reunify?
lâu thì
What's
ông
the
xử lý
timeline
từ
for
ông
getting them all reunified?
phát triển được cái chương trình
So
di trú của ông và đoàn kết
in
những
but a
đứa
few
trẻ.
weeks, we already have designed an innovative program to bring people in through the ports of entry, those that most acutely in need by reason of the fact that they have been remaining in Mexico for so long, and we have already begun to implement it. We are progressing every single day. I don't have a particular timeline, but all I can do is communicate both to the American public and to the individuals seeking protection that we are working around the clock 7 days a week to make that time frame as short as possible, but they need to wait. But they need to wait with a particular goal in mind. We are not saying don't come. We are saying don't come now because we will be able to deliver a safe and orderly process to them as quickly as possible. There have been, I understand, approximately 105 families reunited in the recent past. That is through the extraordinary efforts of council and others in the community. We are joining with council, with members of the community to work on this, and Michelle will be full-time, and we are dedicating resources full-time across the government and the Department of Homeland Security specifically to this effort. The urgency of it cannot be overstated.